Tommy Robinson couldn't really express himself properly, boys from Newton, all that. But he now thinks that he is, you know, somebody who is expressing himself properly and eloquently, and I'm making the argument. Yeah. Millions of people are following me. I find him a blinking nuisance. I wish we could ignore him. He's like an irritating boil on your bum, and you can't get rid of him.
Not an image I cherish.
No, and you can't get rid of him. But I'm fed up with the back teeth of this guy. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's all down to martyrdom. But where I completely dismissed him as a fantasist was when he tried to protest to police on one occasion when he was arrested. Oh, you're arresting me because I'm a working journalist.
Breaking right now, Tommy Robinson has had his appeal against his deranged prison sentence, 18 months for contempt of court for a piece of citizen journalism, denied by the judge. And of course, the mainstream media, especially GB News, which usually decides that they're going to ignore everything concerning Tommy Robinson, is all over this one, because when the news is bad for Tommy, when Tommy's free speech is taken away, when there's lawfare against Tommy Robinson, that's when they decide to cover him. Watch.
We've got some other breaking news to bring you. We told you that the political activist Tommy Robinson was appealing against his appeal for early release from prison on the grounds he was sent to prison for 18 months on contempt of court.
He has lost his appeal this morning. We have just heard he'd been putting this case to the Court of Appeal. Of course, he challenged that sentence for contempt of court on compassionate grounds. He was claiming that prison segregation is making it hard for him to regulate his emotions.
I'll get to Ben Habib and Father Calvin Robinson on this in just one moment, but I've got to show you this unhinged rant which Mike Parry was then allowed to make on the channel.
Because people at home may not quite understand the context of this. His contempt of court
on 10 occasions
was for being told, you are libelling this Syrian refugee boy in this movie, this documentary that you have made. You've put it on your Twitter account. You've shown it in Leicester Square. We've told you not to play it, and you keep playing it. That is what he's in prison for, Mike.
Yeah, exactly.
10 breaches.
I mean, this is a classic case of where I feel he's such an irrelevant person. I'm fed up to the back teeth of him. He hasn't got any values which anybody could possibly admire, but he's, unfortunately, he's like an irritating boil on your bum, and you can't get rid of him.
Not an image I cherish.
No, and you can't get rid of him. But I'm fed up to the back teeth of this guy. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's all down to martyrdom. But where I completely dismissed him as a fantasist was when he tried to protest to police on one occasion when he was arrested. Oh, you're arresting me because I'm a working journalist.
A fantasist. I mean, Mike, I'm sorry. He's doing a lot more journalism than you right now, mate. And I say that as someone who likes you, but I hate this whole idea that you have to have been to university to be a journalist. Welcome to the new world of the independent media. Another opportunity for you, Father Calvin, to hear what is an unhinged rant from Mike Parry, who I can assure you has not looked into the truth about Tommy Robinson. What did you make of it?
I find it quite sad, actually, that there was no due impartiality at GB News. I didn't see any balance on that panel at all. I saw them all saying the exact same thing. Yeah, just agreeing with each other in the elitist, snobby mentality I've come to expect from mainstream media and legacy media, which GB News seems to be a part of these days. Bev Turner, Andrew Pierce, all of them on that panel were besmirching Tommy Robinson, who is the only independent journalist, as far as I can see, that for 20 years has been raising the alarm bells of the Pakistani Muslim rape gangs. It's an issue that everybody should be screaming about, particularly those people nodding their heads on that panel, instead of dragging him down, because it is the truth that he is working class. He is a former football thug. You know, he has got a violent past and it has been quite loud and crass. But that doesn't take away from the fact that he is the one raising alarm bells about a very important issue facing our nation, and one of very few people that has been raising it for 2 decades. And so for them to say, oh yeah, this is just because it's martyrdom or this, that, and the other, or he's trying to play this card or that card. No, actually, it's someone that cares. I want to see more people in public British life that care about young, vulnerable white working class girls that are being groomed and raped by foreign invaders. I think it's despicable for them all to sit there nodding their heads because he's not part of their club, not part of their establishment, not part of their elite, didn't go to the same private schools as them, didn't have journalistic training the same as them. They should be on the pavements with banners with his name on saying free speech, free Tommy Robinson, free the independent journalist. We support him.
They are
That's
the
what they
free
should be doing.
speech
Shame on all of them.
channel. They are the free speech channel. It should be everything that they believe. And what's so shocking is that Mike Parry wasn't actually finished there. Watch.
It's a very interesting.
But all those points you made, Bev, about, Tommy Robinson couldn't really express himself properly, boys from Newton, all that. But he now thinks that he is, somebody who is expressing himself properly and eloquently, and I'm making the argument, millions of people are following me. I find him a blinking nuisance. I wish we could ignore him because, frankly, I think he's an irritant and he's given far too much time and space.
But isn't it, when I was talking about that sign that said free Tommy Robinson, it's like free Nelson Mandela. He's not Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
Right, Stephen, Mike.
Well, Ben Beebe, I mean, it's very interesting to me. Alistair Campbell is on the mainstream media constantly. He's always turning up to lecture on the BBC, despite having led the UK into an illegal war based on his lies. I would argue that is a past that is far, far more serious than any of Tommy Robinson's misdemeanors. So there seems to be a complete double standard about whether we allow people to serve their time and re-enter public life.
So I think it's entirely inappropriate that Tommy Robinson is in jail, is in prison for this. And, it's another sort of gripe I've got with Farage, because I think he's totally misunderstood the process which took Tommy Robinson into prison. And what wasn't mentioned in the GB News clip that you just showed was that the libel action, which Tommy Robinson breached, was a civil action. And the Attorney General, Lord Hermer, who's a most despicable human being, who made the case for illegal migrants coming from Chagos Islands to the United Kingdom, supported the Chagos Islands being handed to Mauritius, represented Jerry Adams, and did a whole load of other things, including trying to change the Legacy Act so that former IRA terrorists could get compensation. This man, Lord Hermer, who is our Attorney General, is a really wretched individual and should be nowhere near public office. He is a political appointee. He decided that Tommy Robinson's breach of the injunction from a civil case was of public interest and therefore inserted himself into the judicial process, upped it from being a civil action into effectively a criminal action, and then directed the courts to arrest, detain, and effectively incarcerate Tommy Robinson. And so Tommy Robinson, whether you like him or not, whether you agree with the arguments he's made in the past or not, whether you think he's a despicable human being, I don't know how Mike Parry described him, a boil on his bum or some words to that effect, whether you think all of that or not is irrelevant. The fact is that it was a political intervention that landed Tommy Robinson in jail. And by my book, there was no reason for the Attorney General to intercede in the case. There was no matter of public interest at stake. And he is therefore a political prisoner because it was a politician who decided to intercede in a civil libel case and send Tommy Robinson to prison. And I think it's very important in public discourse to be able to set aside one's own prejudices, predilections, and dislikes, and to look at the situation, particularly when it comes to law and order and the criminal justice system, dispassionately and as objectively as we can. And I'm afraid Tommy Robinson being in prison is evidence of a two-tier criminal justice system. We've seen so much evidence of it. So many people across the political spectrum recognize that two-tier justice system to exist, and yet they are not prepared to identify how it operates when it comes to putting white British citizens in prison. And we've seen the same blind eye turned towards white British citizens and the two-tier justice system being used against them in the aftermath of the Southport killings, when the protesters, people who'd simply tweeted stuff that was, inflammatory, disgusting, perhaps, but they were rounded up. They were accused of being far right by the Prime Minister. He himself politically interceded in our two-tier justice system, directed the police to arrest all these protesters, many of whom did nothing violent at all, and directed the criminal justice system to incarcerate them. And so I don't know why it's so difficult for people like Farage, for example, to understand that however much he might hate Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner. Now, I don't know Tommy Robinson. I'm not going to apologize for Tommy Robinson's past, and I'm not going to be, I'm not going to cheerlead for Tommy Robinson. But I'm absolutely certain he should not be in prison.
But first, the reason you're watching this show is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to trust mainstream media or the so-called fact-checkers who claim to determine which facts are true. And there's good reason for that, given the debate over free speech, the controversy surrounding Brexit, and how Trump and other politicians challenging the status quo are portrayed. But I have the solution. It's called Ground News, and it's the best way to stay informed and cut through media bias and narratives so you can get the facts for yourself. Go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out. But I want to show you this incredible website and app. By the way, I have the app on my phone, use it all the time in action. So let's look at my favorite speech of the year. My God, it was brilliant. US Vice President J.D. Vance at the Munich Security Conference, just tearing into European governments, including ours, for a despicable retraction of free speech, specifically around those who are silently protesting outside of abortion clinics. You can see clearly in one place that Ground News collates the 361 sources covering the story. Then they show how the story is being covered by what it calls its bias distribution service. And there's so much you can do with this. You can actually scroll down and see every article if you want to, broken down by the political position and the ownership of the publication. So in this case, Newsmax, GB News were fair and accurate. HuffPost and The Independent most certainly were not. But what's more, Ground News gets to know you personally, providing you with the news stories you're interested in, while also analysing your own biases. My favourite feature is what they call their blind spot feed. It surfaces upwards of 20 stories every day that you might not be hearing about because of the corruption of the mainstream media. So effectively, Ground News is giving you the tools to understand the truth about what is really going on in the world. It is now the only way I read the news. It allows me to see through media bias and manipulative narratives without having to rely on the MSM. So go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out. You can subscribe through my link for 40% off the Vantage plan. That's a big discount, and it's what I use for unlimited access. I should say a couple of things. Ground News subscriber funded, and supporting my sponsors also supports my work, of course. And for less than a Netflix subscription, you can get all the world's news in one place and think for yourself. This is a game changer for the news junkies of the world. So that's ground.news/outspoken. But now back to the show. And look, as you point out, this two-tier justice is outrageous, and actually there's a huge amount of evidence now of the governor of HMP Woodhill lying as part of the judicial process. I covered this court case a couple of weeks ago, but we've got an update on it overnight from Team Tommy Robinson, which I just want to take you through. So they say that HMP Woodhill Governor Nicola Marfley told Mr. Justice Chamberlain Tommy has 3 hours out of his cell as part of his regime to use the exercise yard, gym, shower and laundry facilities. In addition, he is offered 2 hours 4 times a week for social visits. She also told Judge Chamberlain he has an additional 2.75 hours out of his cell on 3 days per week, in addition to his usual 3 hours per day to work, which is supposed to be painting and decorating, and that he has access to a telephone to make calls to friends and family during scheduled call times, which amount in total to 4 hours a day. That is what Tommy is supposedly getting as civil prisoner privileges. He is not. We can confirm Tommy had no phone privileges on Tuesday, Saturday or Sunday last week. Tommy had no regime at all yesterday or today. They have stopped it. Why have they stopped it? They have stopped it because his regime was allowed in the separation centre, which is now occupied by jihadists who were separated from each other at HMP Franklin in Durham after Hashim Abidi, the brother of Manchester arena bomber, attacked prison guards with boiling hot oil and stabbed them. Now that some of these prisoners from the HMP Franklin jihad gang have have been moved into the separation centre, Tommy doesn't get a regime. This frustration plays on Tommy's mind because Nicola Marfleet has managed to get the courts to state his comfy imprisonment as a matter of fact when it's just not true. No regime, no phone calls, constant denials of visitation, a cleaning job not painting and decorating, and a DVD player given to him a week or so before the judicial review is just misrepresentations and lies that need to be addressed. And what's interesting is Robert Jenrick, the shadow Justice Secretary for the Tory party, even though he's not specifically referring to Tommy's case, he is, thank God, bringing a spotlight on the fact that Islamist gangs now control many of our prison wings. And he's saying that indeed that this is down to the ECHR. So I'll get your reaction, Father Coven, but first just have a look at what Robert Jenrick has said about this.
After the brutal attack at the weekend by an Islamist terrorist on 3 prison officers at HMP Franklin, we've got to ensure that governors step up, take back control of their prisons and contain dangerous people. One of the issues are our human rights laws. The European Convention on Human Rights is preventing governors from putting dangerous people in close supervision centres, in separation centres, in the places they need to be, to stop them harming prison officers and to stop them spreading dangerous Islamist ideology that will radicalise other prisoners. It's time we put the safety of prison officers and the public above the welfare of criminals.
Father Calvin, the whole situation is insane, isn't it? And it's especially insane that so many resources are going into keeping Tommy Robinson in solitary rather than dealing with the Islamists who are actually out to kill female prison officers.
Absolutely. Firstly, we shouldn't have Islamist extremists in our prisons. If these people are not from Britain, they should be deported to exactly wherever they came from. And if they are from Britain, we need to address the situation. Why are we breeding so many extremists? It was only a couple of weeks ago that the United Arab Emirates said that 8 of the 10 prescribed terrorist organizations that they've banned from their country are based in our country, for goodness sake. So the Mohammedan countries do not want these people in, and we are taking them in ourselves. We're a hotbed for terrorism. We know there are 85 Sharia courts across the UK, which is more than the rest of Europe combined, and we are spreading them throughout Europe. They're coming from Britain. Islamist extremism is coming from our country, for goodness sake. But the other side of this issue is of course, the political persecution. And for Tommy Robinson to have been in solitary confinement, in isolation, essentially for 4 months already, is despicable. That is inhumane. It goes against the European Court of Human Rights, but nobody cares when it's someone on the right. It's the two-tiered system that we were talking about. And I think what Ben Habib just said is exactly what I wanted to hear from Nigel Farage, along the lines of don't need to like him personally, don't need to like his past, don't need to cheerlead for him, but he is a political prisoner and I believe in free speech and he should not be where he is right now. I do support Tommy Robinson. I will cheerlead for him. And I do think it's outrageous that he has not only been imprisoned and is going to be there for 18 months, but has spent 4 of those months so far isolated from the rest of the population. And if the problem is Islamist extremism, sort that problem out as well. It's absolutely stunning to me that British people are being locked up and they cannot spend time in a general population because there's too much Islamist extremism going on in our prisons. Send them home.
I mean, Ben Habib, it is extraordinary, isn't it? It's extraordinary. And again, it's just one of these subjects that's just been ignored by the establishment, the mainstream media for years. You know, Islam extremists are running Britain's prisons. That is nuts.
Yeah, so can I just say, digress completely for a second? I just want to thank Calvin for his very kind words earlier about me in the programme. I meant to say it earlier and I haven't said it, but Calvin, thank you very much. And it's a pleasure to be on with you. I haven't seen you for ages. Not sure whether you're still in the States or back in the UK. I hope you're back in the UK for our sake. But we have adopted a form of Islam. There are lots of different kinds of Islam. And at the heart of Islam is a particularly challenging problem, which is that the Quran is the word of God dictated by the angel Gabriel to the Prophet Muhammad. So it is the word of God, it's perfect. It therefore isn't open to challenge. It therefore isn't effectively open to free speech debate, and the ideology can't be torn apart in the way that we're prepared to all our religious beliefs and ideologies and the protection of our nation and everything. We're prepared to tear it apart. There's a particularly difficult challenge with Islam. And fundamentalists through history, and particularly now, what I would call the kind of Saudi, originated in Saudi, the Wahhabi, the purest fundamentalist form of Muslims, will not deviate from these from the words of the Quran. And they believe that the Quran is not just a religion. It doesn't just set out a religion, it sets out, and the hadith and everything that follows set out, a political system, a judicial system, etc., etc. And in this country, in the pursuit of what we think of being welcoming to the entire world and promoting other cultures, multiculturalism protected by diversity, equity, and inclusion, promoting all these cultures, what we've done, and Calvin touched on it, is somehow taken into our bosom the most fundamentalist forms of Islam. And fundamentalism is only a hop and a skip away from extremism and terrorism. Fundamentalism is where you go when you're on that journey. And the fact that we've now got parliamentarians who are calling for blasphemy laws to be introduced, that we've got a description of Islamophobia put forward by the Labour Party, which effectively would shut down any form of debate about Islam. The fact that we have got DEI being practiced in not just places of employment, but in prisons, in armed forces, in the police, in our criminal justice system more broadly, is giving cover to this most fundamental and potentially dangerous form of Islam that we have taken into our bosom. And unless and until we wake up to that, unless we wake up to the threat that we have actually created ourselves, we've created this threat. There are lots of lunatics in the world, but we've actually brought them to our shores and we have protected them and encouraged them to go on the way they're going. And unless we wake up to that threat, and unless we rediscover, and this is what I touched on earlier about the importance of our constitution and our culture, unless we can have a more, this isn't quite the right word, but I'm going to say it, unless we can have a more muscular form of British culture, a culture which is proud of itself and prepared to go forward and require others, entirely naturally when they come to this country to adhere by our cultural norms, by our Christian norms, even if they aren't Christian themselves. Unless we develop that preparedness, we are going to see this island extinguished in the way that we remember it, certainly when I was a child.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.